Have you ever watched a child repeatedly run away from everything money could provide? Because the one thing he needed most couldn't be bought. What if I told you that sometimes the most expensive solutions are the exact opposite of what a broken heart actually needs? Contrary to what you might expect, 12-year-old Tyler Morrison's problem wasn't rebellion defiance or behavioral issues that required professional intervention. The 5 times he ran away from his billionaire father's $20 million mansion, he was desperately searching for something his family's immense wealth had never provided: genuine connection and unconditional understanding. I've studied hundreds of family crisis stories, and this one reveals something powerful about what children really need to feel loved and valued. It exposes how expensive solutions often miss the simplest truths about human connection. By the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the person who can reach your child isn't a trained professional with expensive credentials or a therapist with advanced degrees. It's someone who sees them as a complete human being, not a problem to be managed or fixed. One handwritten note from Miss Dorothy Williams changed Tyler from a runaway child who had given up hope into a son who never wanted to leave home again, proving that authentic care can heal what money and professional expertise cannot touch. If you skip this story, you'll miss the moment that shows why the most valuable thing you can give a child costs absolutely nothing but means everything, and why sometimes the simplest solutions are the most profound. The Morrison family's 20,000 square foot estate in the Hamptons represented the pinnacle of American wealth: imported marble from Italy, crystal chandeliers worth more than most homes, and manicured gardens that required a full-time staff to maintain. But inside this palace of privilege, a devastating pattern was destroying the one thing money couldn't buy: a child's sense of belonging. William Morrison, worth $4.8 billion from his hedge fund empire, sat in his mahogany-paneled office reviewing quarterly reports, while his 12-year-old son Tyler planned his 6th escape attempt. His wife Catherine, a former model turned socialite, was coordinating another charity gala in their grand ballroom, completely oblivious to the crisis unfolding under their own roof. Tyler Morrison had run away 5 times in 2 years, each escape more desperate than the last. But his parents, trapped in their world of wealth and social obligations, had interpreted his behavior through the lens of professional diagnoses and expensive interventions, rather than recognizing the simple truth that was destroying their son. He felt utterly invisible and unloved in his own home. The first escape had happened when Tyler was 10 years old, during one of the family's elaborate social gatherings. While adults discussed stock portfolios and vacation homes, Tyler had quietly slipped away to the local playground, where he spent hours on the swings watching other children play with parents who actually paid attention to them. When security found him 3 hours later, William and Catherine's response revealed everything wrong with their approach to parenting. Instead of asking why their son had left, they blamed attention-seeking behavior and hired Dr. Reynolds, a child psychologist, at $300 per session to correct Tyler's defiance. 6 months later, Tyler escaped again, this time to the apartment of his former nanny, Maria, who had been fired for overstepping boundaries when she showed Tyler genuine affection and treated him like family. Tyler had sobbed in Maria's arms, begging her to let him stay where someone actually cared about his feelings. His parents' reaction was swift and telling. They were furious that a staff member had encouraged inappropriate attachment and implemented stricter rules preventing household employees from forming genuine relationships with Tyler. They hired family therapist Dr. Martinez at $400 per session to address what they saw as Tyler's unhealthy dependency on hired help. The third escape, when Tyler was 11, found him at the local public library, curled up in the children's section, reading stories about families who actually talked to each other and solved problems together. When police brought him home, Tyler tried to explain that he went there because the families in the books are nice to each other, but his parents only heard defiant behavior requiring more professional intervention. Have you ever seen a child's cry for help interpreted as behavioral problems that need to be fixed? They added GPS tracking to Tyler's belongings and clothes, increased household staff supervision, and filled his schedule with structured activities designed to keep him too busy to plan escapes. They hired tutors, coaches, and enrichment specialists, creating a prison of privilege that made Tyler feel even more isolated. The fourth escape 3 months ago had terrified the family because Tyler disappeared for 6 hours before being found at a nearby diner, talking animatedly with elderly customers who treated him like a person whose thoughts and opinions mattered. The sight of their son choosing the company of strangers over his own family humiliated William and Catherine. Police were involved, treating the situation as a potential kidnapping. Security cameras were installed throughout the mansion. Dr. Kim, a behavioral specialist, charging $500 per session, diagnosed Tyler with attachment disorder and recommended intensive behavioral modification protocols. But it was Tyler's fifth escape, just 1 week ago, that brought the family to the breaking point. Tyler had disappeared for 18 terrifying hours, found sleeping in a park gazebo, hungry and cold, but stubbornly refusing to explain why he kept running away from every comfort and luxury money could provide. The media picked up the story of the troubled billionaire heir, threatening the family's privacy and William's business reputation. FBI was called. Private investigators were hired. Social services began informal inquiries into the family situation. In desperation, William and Catherine had scheduled an emergency intervention with Dr. Kim, who recommended immediate placement in a residential facility, specializing in treatment-resistant children at $10,000 per week. Tyler requires intensive professional intervention away from family dynamics that enable his maladaptive behaviors, Dr. Kim had announced with clinical authority. Home-based approaches have clearly failed. He needs structure, professional oversight, and separation from environmental factors that reinforce his escape patterns. The total cost of expert consultations over 2 years had reached $31,200, with no improvement in Tyler's behavior and increasing desperation in his attempts to find what he was searching for outside his family's mansion. What none of these expensive professionals understood was that Tyler wasn't running away from his home. He was running towards something his family had never provided: genuine human connection, unconditional acceptance, and the simple feeling that someone cared about his inner world rather than just his external behavior. Into this crisis came Dorothy Williams, a 62-year-old grandmother from rural Alabama who worked as the Morrison family's head housekeeper for $28 per hour. For 3 years, Dorothy had been largely invisible to the family, despite maintaining their pristine home and observing the devastating dysfunction hiding behind their perfect facade. Dorothy had raised 6 children and 12 grandchildren with limited financial resources but abundant love. She understood something that expensive degrees couldn't teach children. Don't run away from people who make them feel valued, understood, and genuinely loved. While Tyler's parents planned to send him to a residential facility for being too difficult to manage at home, Dorothy made a decision that would challenge everything this wealthy family believed about love, connection, and what children actually need to thrive. She decided to write Tyler a letter that would either bring him home forever or break her heart trying. While the Morrison family prepared to send Tyler to an expensive residential facility for behavioral modification, Dorothy Williams made a decision that would revolutionize everything they thought they knew about parenting love and what children truly need to feel valued and secure. Dorothy had watched this family for 3 years with the quiet wisdom of someone who had raised children in poverty but never let them feel unloved. She understood something that $31,200 worth of professional consultations had completely missed. Tyler wasn't running away from his home because he was defiant or disturbed. He was desperately searching for something his family's immense wealth had never provided: genuine human connection and unconditional acceptance. The morning after Tyler's fifth escape, while his parents held emergency meetings with Dr. Kim about residential placement, Dorothy found Tyler sitting alone in the mansion's vast library, staring out the window with the defeated expression of a child who had completely given up hope of ever being understood. "Tyler, honey," Dorothy said softly, settling into the chair beside him with the gentle presence of someone who saw him as a complete person rather than a problem requiring professional management. "Can I tell you something that might sound strange to you?" Tyler looked up surprised that someone was speaking to him like a human being, rather than a behavioral case study requiring intervention and control. "You're not broken, baby," Dorothy continued with the quiet authority of someone who had spent decades nurturing children's hearts. "You're not bad or difficult or any of those words the doctor's been using to describe you. You're just a little boy who's hungry for something that can't be bought in any store or provided by any expert." For the first time in months, Tyler's eyes filled with tears, not of frustration or anger, but of pure relief that someone finally understood what he had been trying to communicate through his desperate escapes. Dorothy's wisdom came from a lifetime of understanding the difference between providing for children and truly nurturing them. "You know what you've been looking for every time you run away from this beautiful house?" she asked gently. "You've been searching for somebody who sees Tyler. The boy, not Tyler, the problem. Somebody who cares about what you think and feel, not just how you behave for other people." Tyler nodded through his tears, unable to articulate what Dorothy had recognized immediately, that he was starving for authentic connection in a home filled with people who were paid to manage him, but never asked to truly know him. How many of us have forgotten that children need to be seen as complete people, rather than projects to be perfected? Dorothy began sharing stories about her childhood in rural Alabama, painting pictures of a world where material simplicity coexisted with emotional richness that fascinated Tyler. She described Sunday dinners where 3 generations gathered around one table, children included in adult conversations, problems solved together as a family unit, where everyone's voice mattered. "My grandbaby who's about your age, he helps me cook dinner every Sunday," Dorothy shared with the warmth of someone describing treasured traditions. "Not because he has to, but because we genuinely enjoy talking while we work together. He tells me about school, his friends, his worries and dreams. I tell him stories about when I was young and the lessons I learned. We just enjoy each other's company." Tyler listened with the intensity of someone hearing about a foreign but wonderful country where families actually cared about each other's inner worlds. "Your family really talks to each other about important things?" he asked with wonder. "Baby, that's what families do when they remember that love is about being together in meaningful ways, not just living in the same expensive house and following the same daily schedule." That afternoon, Dorothy approached Tyler with an idea that would become the foundation of his emotional healing. "Tyler, honey, I want to try something completely different from what all those doctors been doing. Instead of trying to figure out what's wrong with you, how about we figure out what's absolutely right with you?" She pulled out a simple composition notebook and a pen tools that cost less than $5, but would prove more powerful than thousands of dollars worth of professional therapy sessions. "I want you to help me write a letter," Dorothy explained. "Not to your parents or the doctors or anyone else who's been trying to fix you. A letter to yourself about who Tyler really is when nobody's telling him he's broken or difficult." Over the next 3 days during Dorothy's regular work hours, when Tyler's parents were busy with their own social and business obligations, they worked together on what Dorothy called the truth letter. This wasn't clinical therapy or professional treatment. It was simply one human being helping another discover their inherent worth and value. "Tell me about a time when you felt really truly happy," Dorothy would prompt gently. "Not because you got something expensive or accomplished something impressive, but because you felt genuinely good about who you are as a person." Tyler slowly began sharing precious memories that revealed his authentic self, building elaborate forts in his room, where he could create his own world, helping the former gardener plant flowers and learning about growing things, reading stories to the neighbor's little girl when visiting a friend's house. These were moments when Tyler felt useful, connected, and valued for his character, rather than his family's reputation. As they worked together, a beautiful letter emerged, not from professional therapeutic techniques, but from a child's heart, guided by a grandmother's unconditional love and wisdom. "Dear Tyler, you are not the problem everyone thinks you are. You are a kind, thoughtful boy who wants to help people and make them feel better. You are intelligent in ways that schools don't always measure or recognize. You are funny when people take time to really listen to your jokes and observations. You are gentle with animals and smaller children who need protection. You notice things that adults miss because they're too busy or distracted. You ask good questions that make people think about important things in new ways. You run away because you're looking for people who see these wonderful things about you instead of focusing on what they think is wrong with you. You're not broken for wanting to be loved and accepted for exactly who you are, not just what your parents want you to become for their own purposes. Dorothy added her own words at the end. Tyler, baby, Miss Dorothy sees all the beautiful special things about you that other people have been missing or ignoring. You don't need to run away to find someone who cares about the real you underneath all those labels and diagnoses. I'm right here, and I ain't going nowhere. Come find me whenever you need reminding of how truly special and valuable you are. Reading this letter, Tyler experienced something revolutionary, complete acceptance of who he was, rather than demands to become someone else for other people's comfort or convenience. For the first time in his life, an adult had seen his running away not as rebellion or defiance, but as a desperate search for authentic human connection. Miss Dorothy, Tyler said quietly, his voice filled with wonder. Do you really think I'm not bad or broken? Baby, I don't just think you're not bad. I know for certain that you're genuinely good, kind, and special. There's a big difference between those two things, and I need you to understand that difference. Dorothy began involving Tyler in simple, meaningful activities during her work hours. Not structured therapeutic interventions, but natural interactions that built genuine relationship and mutual respect. Tyler helped her prepare meals, learning about her family and background while chopping vegetables and setting tables. He assisted with household tasks, feeling genuinely useful and needed rather than managed and monitored by paid professionals. Most importantly, Dorothy consistently asked Tyler for his thoughts and opinions about everything from current events to family situations to his own observations about the world around them. She treated his 12-year-old perspective as valuable and insightful rather than dismissible or irrelevant. But the ultimate test of their connection was approaching a crisis that would force Tyler to choose between running away again or trusting that the understanding he had found with Dorothy was genuine and permanent. 3 weeks after Dorothy began building her authentic relationship with Tyler, the Morrison family crisis reached its ultimate breaking point. Dr. Kim had completed her comprehensive assessment and delivered her professional recommendation with the authority of expensive credentials and institutional backing. Tyler requires immediate placement in a residential behavioral facility specializing in treatment-resistant children, Dr. Kim announced during a formal family conference in the mansion's intimidating boardroom. Home-based interventions have clearly failed to address his persistent escape behaviors. He needs intensive structure, professional oversight, and complete separation from family dynamics that enable his maladaptive patterns. William and Catherine, exhausted by 2 years of failed expensive interventions and increasingly concerned about public embarrassment affecting their social standing and business reputation, reluctantly agreed to Dr. Kim's recommendation. If the trained professionals say this is what Tyler needs to become manageable, William said, with the resignation of someone who had given up on understanding his own child, then we really have no other choice but to follow their expert guidance. Catherine nodded in agreement, more concerned about ending the family drama that threatened her carefully curated social image than understanding why her son felt compelled to repeatedly escape from their home. Tyler overheard this devastating conversation from the hallway outside his father's office, learning that his parents were prepared to send him away to an institution rather than make any effort to understand why he kept running or what he might actually need from them emotionally. In that moment of absolute clarity, Tyler realized that his parents viewed him not as a beloved child whose behavior communicated unmet needs, but as an embarrassing problem requiring professional management away from their daily lives. That night, Tyler made what he believed would be his final escape plan. But this time, he wasn't planning another temporary disappearance. He was preparing to vanish permanently from a family that had proven they would rather institutionalize him than love him. At 12 years old, Tyler had decided that living on the streets was preferable to being locked in a behavioral facility where no one would ever try to understand his heart or treat him like a complete human being. The next morning, Dorothy arrived for work to discover Tyler's room empty and a heartbreaking note on his bed that revealed the depth of his despair. "I heard them talking about sending me away because I'm too much trouble for them to handle. I won't let them lock me up in some place where nobody cares about me. I'm never coming back to this house. Don't look for me, Tyler." Dorothy immediately understood that this wasn't another temporary escape. This was a child making a desperate decision to permanently sever all family connections rather than face what felt like ultimate rejection and abandonment by the people who should have loved him most. While William frantically called police and FBI and Catherine contacted expensive private investigators, Dorothy made a completely different choice. Instead of joining the professional search efforts or waiting for authorities to handle the crisis, she sat down at her kitchen table and wrote Tyler a letter that would either bring him home forever or haunt her for the rest of her life. Have you ever realized that sometimes the most powerful interventions come from the heart, not from professional training? Dorothy poured her entire heart into a handwritten letter that challenged everything Tyler believed about his worth, his family's capacity for change, and his own power to influence his circumstances. "Dear Tyler, I know you think nobody wants you around, but that ain't true. I want you here, not because it's my job to take care of you, but because you matter to me like real family matters. And I can't imagine this house without your voice and your heart. I know you heard your parents talking about sending you to that place, and I know that hurt your heart something terrible. But baby, sometimes grown folks do the wrong thing for what they think are the right reasons. They ain't sending you away because you're bad or broken. They sending you away because they don't know how to love you the way you need and deserve to be loved. But here's what I need you to understand. You running away forever ain't gonna teach them how to love you better. It's just gonna break everybody's heart even more, including yours. Tyler, honey, you got two choices in front of you. You can keep running away from people who don't understand you yet, or you can come home and be brave enough to teach them how to see the beautiful special boy I see every single day. I'm going to make you a promise that I've never broken to any child. If you come home, I'm going to stand with you and fight for you. I'm going to help your parents understand what you really need from them. I'm going to make sure they hear your voice and see your heart. You ain't going to have to fight this battle all by yourself anymore. But you got to come home first. You got to be brave enough to believe that somebody loves you enough to fight for you and teach other people how to love you right." Dorothy ended with words that would echo in Tyler's heart forever. "I'll be waiting on the front steps until you decide to trust me, however long it takes. Love always, Miss Dorothy." While police searched parks, bus stations, and homeless shelters, Dorothy drove through Tyler's neighborhood, visiting every location he had escaped to before. She left copies of her letter at the library, the diner, the playground, anywhere Tyler might seek the human connection he craved. At each location, she spoke to staff and regular customers who had encountered Tyler during his previous escapes. "If you see this boy, please give him this letter and tell him Miss Dorothy is waiting for him to come home." Something remarkable happened as Dorothy shared Tyler's story. The librarians, diner workers, park staff, and neighborhood residents began sharing their own observations about this polite, intelligent child who visited their spaces seeking something he couldn't find at home. "That boy's not troubled or difficult," said Mrs. Chen from the library. "He's just lonely and searching. He reads stories about families, asks questions about how normal families actually work. He's looking for something he ain't getting in that big mansion." After 36 hours of hiding in an abandoned building, cold, hungry, and more alone than ever, Tyler found one of Dorothy's letters taped to the library's front door. Reading her words, he realized that someone was offering him something he had been desperately searching for. Not just temporary understanding, but permanent advocacy and love. Wait until you hear what happened when Tyler made his choice. It transformed everything. The 12-year-old boy who had run away 5 times before made a different decision. Instead of continuing to flee from people who didn't understand him, Tyler chose to return to the one person who had proven she could see his worth and fight for his happiness. When Tyler walked up the mansion's circular driveway, with Dorothy's letter clutched tightly in his hand, he found exactly what she had promised Dorothy, sitting on the front steps, waiting for him, with infinite patience, unconditional love, and unshakable belief in his value as a human being. "Miss Dorothy," Tyler said through tears of relief and hope, "I came home because you said I was worth fighting for. Nobody ever said that to me before." "Baby," Dorothy replied, standing to embrace the child, who had finally found what he was looking for. "You've been worth fighting for since the day you were born. We just got to teach everybody else what I already know about how special you are." 6 months after Dorothy's letter brought Tyler home forever, the Morrison mansion had been transformed from a showcase of wealth into a genuine home where a child finally felt valued, understood, and unconditionally loved. Tyler had not attempted to run away a single time since that pivotal moment on the front steps, not because of increased security measures or behavioral modification protocols, but because he had finally found what he had been desperately searching for throughout his young life: authentic human connection and the secure knowledge that someone saw his worth. Dorothy had been promoted to family coordinator at $75,000 annually, but her most important role couldn't be measured in salary. She had become Tyler's chosen grandmother and the bridge that taught his parents how to see their son as a complete person deserving of unconditional love rather than a behavioral problem requiring professional management. Dorothy's letter had accomplished what thousands of dollars in expert consultations could never achieve. It had shown Tyler that he was inherently valuable and taught his family how to recognize and nurture that value through authentic relationship and genuine care. Family dinners had been completely revolutionized from formal silent affairs into genuine conversations where Tyler's thoughts, feelings, and perspectives were actively sought and genuinely valued. William had reduced his work schedule dramatically to spend meaningful time with his son, finally learning about Tyler's interests, dreams, hopes, and the intelligent observations he made about the world around them. Catherine had discovered that her son was brilliant, funny, kind, and insightful when given space to be himself, rather than pressure to perform for social media or family reputation. She began seeing Tyler's sensitivity as a strength rather than a weakness that needed professional correction. The expensive therapeutic interventions had been replaced with Dorothy's simple but profound wisdom. Children need to be seen, heard, understood, and valued for exactly who they are, not constantly pressured to become someone else for adult convenience or social expectations. Tyler's supposed behavioral problems had completely disappeared when his fundamental emotional needs were finally recognized and consistently met through authentic family relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. The Morrison family had established the Every Child Matters Foundation, providing support and education for wealthy families struggling to connect meaningfully with their children despite having every material advantage. Dorothy became a nationally recognized speaker, sharing her insights about the difference between managing children and truly nurturing their hearts and minds. Tyler had transformed from a desperate runaway child into a confident, secure young person who understood his own worth and could clearly articulate his needs and feelings. He began mentoring other children whose families were struggling with communication and authentic connection, showing them through his own example that their voices mattered and their hearts deserved to be understood. Most importantly, Tyler had learned that home wasn't a place where he had to earn love through perfect behavior or constant achievement. It was a place where he was cherished simply for being exactly who he was, with all his unique qualities, perspectives, and ways of seeing the world. Dorothy's letter had given Tyler something more valuable than any amount of money could buy: the unshakable knowledge that he was worthy of love, capable of growth, and deserving of a family that would fight for his happiness and well-being rather than trying to change him into someone else. The ripple effects extended throughout their community and beyond. Other prestigious families began questioning their own approaches to child rearing, recognizing that emotional connection mattered more than educational achievements or social status. Several families sought Dorothy's guidance in building authentic relationships with their own children. If Tyler and Dorothy's story touched your heart and you'd like to hear more inspiring stories about ordinary people whose love transforms families in extraordinary ways, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Every week I share stories about how authentic care and genuine understanding can heal what expensive professional solutions cannot reach. Which moment in this story resonated most deeply with you? Have you ever seen a child who just needed someone to believe in their fundamental worth and value? Share your thoughts. In the comments below, your story might help someone recognize that the most powerful intervention is often the simplest: genuine love, authentic understanding, and the courage to see children as complete human beings deserving of respect. Remember, the next time you meet someone like Dorothy Williams, pay attention to their wisdom about what children really need. Sometimes the person who can save your family isn't the one with the most expensive credentials or advanced degrees. It's the one who understands that every child deserves to be seen, heard, valued, and loved exactly as they are.